Hi, my name is Darius Amiri. I am an immigration lawyer and the chair of the immigration department at Rose Law Group, a law firm based out of Scottsdale, Arizona. And I wanted to talk today about the President Trump's executive order on the suspension of immigration into the United States that was first tweeted about back on April 20th, and the executive order, the details of which were released last night, April 22nd. So when the tweet first came out, there was a lot of fear because the language of the tweet talked about suspending immigration to the United States without further detail. And obviously there would be some misconceptions and some fears surrounding what that actually entailed. Now that we have the text of the executive order, it's a little bit more clear. The executive order purports to suspend entry to the United States of any individual who is currently outside of the United States on the date of the proclamation. So as of April 23rd, and who does not have a valid visa or travel document allowing their entry into the United States. The executive order will be in effect initially for at least 60 days, and there could be attempts to modify or extend the executive order beyond that, but at least initially the term is a 60-day period. I would assume there will be court challenges to this that may delay the implementation of the order right away. But for now, let's assume that it's a 60-day period, absent any of those. However, in the text of the executive order, many different areas of immigration are exempted or carved out, so they're not going to be affected. And it's a long list, so I'm just going to point out a couple that I think are important. So lawful permanent residents, people who have green cards, will not be affected by this executive order. Individuals and their family members who are trying to come to the U.S. As a physician or a researcher in order to help us prevent or fight against the spread of the COVID virus will be exempted from this order. Individuals who applied for a visa pursuant to the EB-5 investor visa program will not be affected by this order. Spouses and children under the age of 21 of U.S. citizens, including prospective adoptees on an IR4 or IH4 visa. So certain types of adoption visas for children who are born overseas and or trying to be brought into the United States to be adopted by U.S. citizens, those will be exempted as well. Individuals who might further investigations for Homeland Security or law enforcement could still be brought into the United States absent the effect of this executive order. Members of the armed forces and their spouses and children will be exempted, and also Afghan and Iraqi nationals who served as translators, interpreters, or employees of the U.S. government in our conflicts overseas would also be exempted. And finally, any individual whose entry would be in the national interest as determined by the Department of Homeland Security or the Department of State. So as you can see, there are a lot of exemptions to this executive order. My personal feeling is it's probably more political than anything else, and it may create some news and some panic and some headlines, but that could also be looked at as a distraction from some of the other troubling things that are going on in the world right now. Another thing to think about in terms of the executive order and what's going on with our immigration system already is that many U.S. embassies are closed and have been closed since the end of March due to concerns about the spread of the COVID virus. USCIS offices have suspended in-person services through at least May 3rd of this year, if not longer, if that doesn't get extended. Many immigration courts have been closed for the same reasons. A lot of what the U.S.-Canada border also has been closed for non-essential travel or restricted. And so there's a lot of what this executive order purports to do are measures that have already been taken in some form or another. And so, again, I mainly think this is just a political thing. It will get people energized probably on both sides. But if you have an immigration matter, for example, asylum, for example, petitioning for a U.S. citizen spouse, you can still move forward with that. H-1B visas, EB-5 investor visas. There are a lot of matters that this will not affect. Every case is an individual consideration, and you should discuss that with an immigration attorney like myself or somebody else who's qualified to give you an answer. But if you have a type of immigration case that you're holding off on, don't let this executive order scare you off, because there are many exemptions and many people will not be affected by the order. Thank you for tuning in, and I will continue with updates as this situation evolves. Be safe.